I don't need to tell you, we've all seen parental rights have been incrementally stripped. We've had to fight for parental rights. Children are being targeted by progressive evil agendas. That's not an overstatement. That is happening. We have to fight for our children. God has designed the family and He has entrusted children to our care. They don't belong to the state. They belong to God, and God has entrusted them to us, so we better manage what He's entrusted well and realize that if government tries to intrude in the family, it's a violation of what God's design is intended. Children are a heritage from the Lord. They are a fruit of the womb from Him. Religious liberty is important, especially to us. There are 613 laws in the Old Testament when you count them all. And God summarizes the most important in 10 of them that are found in Exodus chapter 20. The first of the 10 commandments is what we call the conscience clause. It's Exodus 20, verse 3. You shall have no other gods before me. Why is this a conscience clause? Because it means that if my allegiance is supremely to God, there are no other gods, nothing else and no one else I worship above God, then that means I should not be required to bow down to or submit to anything or anyone that conflicts or competes with my loyalty and allegiance to the supreme God of heaven. So this is why we call it the conscience clause. We need to start to ask ourselves in this election, who will defend Americans' conscience, particularly on the level of religious freedom? It means that doctors who object to performing abortions on religious grounds won't be forced to. It means that cake makers and graphic designers and photographers who object to providing their services on religious grounds won't be forced to. It means that companies that object to providing abortifacient drugs as part of their healthcare program won't be forced to. It means that Christians who object to taking a vax on religious grounds won't lose their jobs. So ask yourselves, which candidate is going to preserve religious liberties and America's conscience? Because we only have one supreme God that we should bow down to. It is important that we have good judges. And don't underestimate the importance of the President of the United States in selecting federal judges. In Donald Trump's single term, he appointed 226 federal judges. That is an amazing number, proportionally more than any of his predecessors who had 2 terms. Again, Donald Trump appointed 226 federal judges. Obama, in his 2 terms, appointed 320. George W. Bush, in his 2 terms, 322. Bill Clinton, in his 2 terms, 367. So proportionally, Trump comes in 226. I mean, federal judges is an important aspect of who is president of the United States. And when it comes to the nation's 13 federal appeals courts, which have final word on most legal appeals around the country, Trump appointed, get this, 54 federal appellate judges in his single term. You know how many Obama appointed in his 2 terms? 55. So it is important that you consider when you're electing someone, what's the ramification on judges who will get appointed? And obviously, of course, that also includes Supreme Court justices. They play a huge role in the future of our nation in terms of judging and ruling in righteousness. And so ask yourselves, I'm not asking for a verbal response, I'm just saying these are the things we need to consider going into vote. Which candidate will appoint the best judges and justices? I think the subject of Israel is important. Genesis 12:3, God says clearly, I will bless those who bless Israel, and I will curse him who curses Israel, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. I don't think it's appropriate to support every policy of every foreign nation. I'm sure every foreign nation doesn't support ours. I don't support our own, So I'm not saying that carte blanche, everything Israel does is right. But what I do know is God says we better be Israel's ally, because he will bless those who bless Israel, and God will curse those who curse Israel. And we cannot have our politicians cozying up to the enemies of Israel. There must not be daylight between the United States and Israel in terms of our support. We have to stop criticizing the Prime Minister of Israel. That man is in the most difficult position I could possibly imagine someone to be in. and he's under tremendous pressure and scrutiny. When Benjamin Netanyahu came and addressed a joint session of Congress on July the 25th, 2024, I think it was a disgrace that Vice President Harris, as president of the Senate, was not sitting behind him on the dais. But in all fairness, Senator J.D. Vance was out campaigning and he wasn't there either. The United States must show its unwavering support for the nation of Israel because the threat against Israel is great from Hamas, Hezbollah, the proxies of Iran, and we must be putting pressure on Iran and stop unfreezing their assets and doing all we can to show our unwavering support for Israel, because he who blesses Israel will be blessed and whoever curses Israel will be cursed. And you need to ask yourself which candidate will best support the nation of Israel. We have to consider border security these days. And let me tell you, God's in favor of borders, just in case you don't know. This is Acts 17:26, and God has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth and has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings. God's not opposed to boundaries or borders. In fact, when he divides up the land of Israel between the 12 tribes of Israel, he gives land allotments according to particular boundaries and borders. And if God is in favor of boundaries and borders, then surely he's in favor of defending those defined borders. So national defense is an important thing. At the same time, know the heart of God, he's also favorable toward the alien. In Zechariah 7:10, it says, "Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the alien or the poor." We should take care of the widow, the fatherless, the alien, and the poor. But when it comes to immigration, there is a right way and a legal way for aliens to come into our country. There's a right way. There's a legal way. I know many people who were not born in the United States who have immigrated to the United States. Praise God, we should be pro-immigration, but I know many people who have done it the legal way, the hard way. It's taken them years to get their American citizenship. All the while, there are millions, how many now? 20 million who have been streaming across the southern border into our country, getting free hotels, free cell phones, free college education. And why? Ultimately, because some people think it'll develop into a voting bloc at the expense of our national security. I have a personal friend who, this is firsthand information, who was down at the border last year. He said, "Gary, I saw on the other side of the border pulling up several coach buses. And you know who got off? Every single person in those several coach buses was a young military-age male from China coming right into our country. Where's the borders are? Where's the borders are? So ask yourselves the question, which candidate will best protect our national security?